My name is Raghav Priyadarshi and I am the CEO and founder of Savikalp Sciences. So as you would know, over the past 30 years, there has been a growth in access to medical cannabis in many countries around the world. There have been pioneers such as Uruguay, such as Canada. Increasingly, many states in the US also enable access to patients to cannabis medicines. 90% of medicines sold under medical cannabis have been flower, which means that these are medical cannabis products which are either smoked or consumed in a vaporized format as a concentrate. Interestingly, over the past 2 years, I would say in particular, there have been some companies, including, for example, Savikalp Sciences in India, but there are a few peers like us around the world that have been focusing on developing cannabis phytopharmaceuticals, cannabis drugs. So going from medical cannabis to cannabis medicine, in which you are studying at a pharmacological level the utility of the compounds found within the cannabis plant for specific therapeutic applications in various chronic disorders. Medical cannabis has given very good results in a lot of patients, and there would be today hundreds of thousands, perhaps over 1 million patients consuming globally medical cannabis in some form or the other. The challenge has been that these form factors are not stable because you're using medical cannabis in its raw format and you're smoking. There are variabilities in the treatment outcomes that you observe. Because of the fact that this is a natural plant that you are consuming, there cannot be a repeatability of treatment outcome. Which is why it is important today to apply a pharmacological and clinical drug development and research lens to cannabinoids, the compounds found within the cannabis plant, so as to be able to ensure a repeatability of treatment outcomes. When you are using raw medicines, raw plant, raw mineral extracts, there is a huge amount of variability in the concentration of the principal actives found in the plant between different batches, and these are impacted by variations in soil, by variations in temperature, by variations in the agriclimatic conditions where such plants are grown. Therefore, for you to graduate from medical cannabis to cannabis medicine, it is important for you to do full pharmacological development so as to be able to have safe, effective and stable formulations that can be given to patients. Therefore, classical medicines, and there are over 200 such classical formulations that exist in the texts, do have cannabis as a principal therapeutic ingredient in the formulation. This means that from a medical development or from a scientific development lens, if you wish to work with the cannabis plant, currently regulations in India are more amenable to your developing cannabis-based phytopharmaceuticals, polypharmacological products in India compared to the US or Switzerland. But there are challenges as well that exist in the country. For example, there is no cultivation regime governing medical cannabis. Uttarakhand, as you may be familiar, in 2018 came out with a regulatory regime enabling the cultivation of hemp, which is legally defined in the US as a cannabis plant containing THC below a certain prescribed threshold. Now, whether or not this threshold is scientific or not is another matter, but for you to make medicines, tetrahydrocannabinol, which is the principal active that has its significant anti-inflammatory and analgesic properties, is required in medical formulations. And currently in India, the biggest challenge is that while using cannabis leaf, that we call in a legal sense bhang, is open and available and accessible to drug manufacturing and drug research firms, high concentration leaves, high concentration buds are not available because of a restriction on cultivation of cannabis. Therefore, the only legal route for us as a drug or as a pharmaceutical firm to access the raw API is the government, and the excise department controls supply of the raw material. Challenges are around storage, challenges are around the batch quality of the supply from government, and this requires an enabling cultivation regime for you to be able to graduate to quality and consistent pharmacological products made using cannabis as a principal active. Our journey at Savikalp Sciences looking at phytomedicine and phytocannabinoids started in January 2020. Obviously, there was a little bit of a halt in progress because of the pandemic, yet we were able to continue to incubate our efforts and have now 3 years down the line achieved some significant milestones. I would like to share that our journey started initially by there being an interest from the Canadian government, which had reached out to us to connect us to an Indian origin entrepreneur who had created what was Canada's first publicly traded medical cannabis company on the stock exchange. A company by the name of Terrascent, co-founded by Vijay Sappani, who is an Indian origin entrepreneur, grew up in Chennai but emigrated to Canada when he was a young man, and over the past 20 years found very significant success in Canada and became one of the global foremost entrepreneurs in the medical cannabis ecosystem. It was fortuitous for us to be able to connect with one of the pioneers of the medical cannabis industry in Canada, and together Vijay was keen to bring back his understanding to his native country or country of origin, which was India, and that is how Savikalp was formed. So a little bit of government support from the Canadian government connecting their leading entrepreneurs with us in India is how this exercise came about. Our journey in the past 2 years, effectively since we've started some of our clinical development, has been that on a few formulations and on targeting a few indications, we have been able to conclude our preclinical biology. We've concluded very successful investigations when it comes to in vitro and in vivo understanding. We've got approvals of currently 7 formulations in the market for a pan-India marketing. These are classical and what I would call stage 1 formulations. We continue to work on furthering our understanding from a basic science point of view of what the therapeutic applications of cannabinoids are. And we've really only scratched the surface.